What's going on, guys? I'm Cristiano Oliveira from the Benfica podcast, and you're listening to the Seleção podcast.
Simões bending one for Torres. Eusebio. Oh my word! Have you ever seen anything like that?
Bem jogado por Simão, a passar por dois adversários. Simão a tentar oferecer o golo a Figo e a bola é golo! O golo de Figo!
Ricosta vai, acreditou, vai tirar para o golo, atira, golo! 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 Cristiano Ronaldo, vai embora Cristiano Ronaldo, bateu, golo, 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 golo! Ronaldo! Obrigado, Cristiano! Portugal vai Éder, chuta! Gol! Gol!
And we welcome you to episode number 67 of the Seleção podcast, a proud partner of Portugal.net. My name is Danny Pinto. I am your host. Thank you guys so much for tuning in once again it happened again. And I honestly am, I know this is a podcast. You guys listen, you guys watch. I should have more words for what we're about to discuss, but I had an intro ready to go. I have notes ready to go, and as soon as I clicked on the microphone, I'm just like, how and why are we still putting up with crap like this after clear indications that Fernando Santos is not the man for this job, and we'll get into all that, but. I will say that I am not a very happy host of the Seleção podcast at this moment, but this is hopefully this is a little bit of it'll be cathartic for not only me but for you listening and for our upcoming guest here on episode number 67 of the Seleção podcast. He, of course, Matthew Marshall of Portugal.net. He was at the match last night at the Quarry, and he'll give us his insight on what happened last night as we are recording this on Monday, or check that on Wednesday as the game was on Tuesday. But we'll get his insight here in just a few moments. But of course, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at selecaopod, facebook.com/selecaopod, email the show selecaopod@gmail.com, and of course bookmark our website selecaopod.com. You're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Hit the like button throughout the interview if you have not already. That helps the episode and the show, I should say, be more visible and easier to find on YouTube. And if you're listening to us, you guys have been listening to us from episode number 1 all the way to now, greatly appreciate that. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon Podcasts, all of those. Subscribe to those, like those, send comments, and rate those 5 stars wherever you can. Just greatly appreciate everybody's support of the pod. If you're new to the pod, we had a big jump in followers, especially on Twitter. Welcome. I usually am a little happier. I will critique the team every once in a while, and there's plenty to critique about. But welcome everybody in. If you have not been a follower until very recently, so appreciate everybody following, whether you're doing it now or from the beginning. But without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in the man who was at the match yesterday. And look at that background. Matthew, what background is that? Don't tell me it was from yesterday.
Yeah, picture him yesterday. I just saw there was an option to change background. First time I've done it on one of these things, so I thought I'll take the opportunity, and it didn't let me choose another one. I had a one shot only, so that's what we're stuck with. But it's not bad.
Hopefully we're not. Hopefully that's
scene of the crime, mate. Scene of the crime.
Scene of the crime. Scene of the tragedy. We don't want to get too dramatic here, but Matthew, it happened again. This is a third consecutive opportunity that this national team under Fernando Santos in a group deciding match. A match in which either Portugal had either the lead in the group or at least had control of the group in their hands. Two consecutive Nations League groups. Obviously, the World Cup qualifying group with Serbia, not finding a way to close out a game of such importance. What was, I guess we'll get into all that in the beginning, but let's just go to walking into the stadium, just seeing the atmosphere heading into the match. What was that like yesterday in Braga for the deciding match between Portugal and Spain?
It was great for me because I go there a lot. I've never seen it full. So there was that. Of course, the flags continue with the FPF laying them out on not all the seats, but most of the seats. And of course, yeah, huge anticipation, especially after the game against Czech Republic in Prague. It was quite positive. But as I said, after that game, you know, that those memories of Serbia are still very fresh for me. I was there with Tom. And of course, it was exactly the same situation where they needed a draw. And it didn't happen. So, yeah, a lot of deflation, a lot of people getting up and leaving as soon as Morata scored, which is, I guess, understandable. So, yeah, from high to low. And that's just typical of being in football stadiums, that you know, huge change in mood depending on where the goals are going in and when they're going in.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit after the Morata goal. What was it like leading? I guess like once the whistle blew to start the match. Obviously, we knew what was on the horizon here. It was a win or a draw. You go through the semifinals. While it would be the cherry on top per se to get to the Final Four, obviously all our eyes are mostly on what's going to take place here in a couple of months with the World Cup. But during that match, was there uneasiness in the stadium? Was it palpable? Was it something to where, because chances were created, it wasn't a typical Fernando Santos kind of protect the result at all costs. They were trying in numerous instances. They had chances. Diogo Jota and Bruno Fernandes in the first half. You had Ronaldo have that ball coming to him right in front of the 18. Just wasn't quick enough to just maybe one time it. But as the match continued, how was the atmosphere, and could you tell that there was nervousness in the stadium? I guess that'd be the question there.
Yeah, of course. It was without a goal, and once you got to that final, I guess 20-minute mark, and with Portugal sitting deeper, I'm sure everyone in the stadium had watched that game against Serbia, and unfortunately, it was just you could see it all coming. But like I said, you could see this coming before the game even started. It was just all there, ready to happen. But as you say, if you want to break it down just from a game point of view, I mean, Portugal played pretty well. Spain had so much of the ball. Just so boring they are with the ball, especially in the first 20 minutes or so. But Portugal had all the chances. Diogo Costa didn't have a save to make. He didn't really have anything to do. So if you want to just break it down from a standalone game, Portugal played pretty well. No team is going to have a lot of the ball against Spain. That's just not the way it works. They hold the ball in their own half, back to the keeper, on and on it goes. And they just try and bore the opposition to sleep as much as the crowd to sleep. So as a game, it wasn't too bad. But of course, yeah, everyone's going to focus on those final 15, 20 minutes. Nico Williams obviously had a big impact. And I just saw the highlights this morning, and it wasn't great from Cancelo, Dias, really, if you just want to break it down from a goal. But, I don't really go too high, too low, Danny. I know most Seleção supporters do, but I go to so many games.
I do.
I stay along a pretty sort of even line most of the time, and it's just another game. It's just another result, which could have gone either way. You said Jota had a good chance, Ronaldo had a good chance. If those things go in, it's a different game. We're having a completely different discussion. So many things happens in games. Little things happen in games that could go either way. So I tend to see it like that. But of course, yeah, most people don't.
No, most people don't, and that's Matthew. I mean, it talks to the role here, because I host a podcast. I am first and foremost a fan. I have no media credential. I have no. I'm a fan hosting a podcast. You and Tom, you guys are journalists. You guys are covering it for the site. You guys are giving us the reporting on the facts and everything like that. So it's I appreciate your point of view because hold tight because this is going to get really really
I'm ready, mate. I'm ready.
really crazy here. But I think the last time we had you on, it was during qualification for Qatar. And I don't recall I think it was after like a 5-0 victory that Portugal had against, I forget someone, but there's been talk for a long time about Fernando Santos and his leading of this squad. And I recall, I think you wrote a piece, and I think it might've been like a year or so ago during qualification where, you had, and again, this is not me saying, oh, Matthew, look at it now. You supported Fernando Santos in your piece, and now look where we're at. This isn't that, but I'm just talking about just time frame here. At that time, in your opinion, Fernando Santos was maybe not, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. Wasn't the guy that needed to be the leader of this national team. You just felt that he was just going to be the guy that was. Where are you now with the scenario? Not so much like making a change before the World Cup. I'm just talking about in general. Fernando Santos' time it has to be done here soon because to me, the results just don't support keeping him. And that's as calmly as I can say it, as I'm trying to gather myself here. But I just don't think the results have supported him staying on as manager. What say you?
Well, my position hasn't changed, and the article I wrote wasn't, my job is not so much to give my opinion, although I do here and there, but it's more just to speak for the people on the other side of the argument.
That's what it was, yes. Yeah.
But it was also just to try and lay out all the reasons why the FPF not going to sack Santos. And I think a lot of people just couldn't see that. So, and another reason that I wrote it was that I could see this stuff just going on and on and on till the World Cup, which it has. And I can understand it, but to me, I don't see that much point in it because, as I say, the FPF were never going to sack Santos, and they're not going to sack Santos. And what's interesting is that in the press conference last night, I don't remember the exact question, but he was very quick to point out that his contract goes to 2024.
God.
So we already know from some of that discussion through that drama in the World Cup qualification that we found out what the, I guess, expectations were from the FPF and what they expect from him, which is, I guess, just get to the tournaments and get out of the group stage. That's pretty much the minimum expectations that he has to achieve for them not to sack him. And that's what he continues to do. Now, those expectations are obviously way, way lower than most Seleção supporters when they see the quality in this team, what they think this team can do.
What do you think of those expectations?
Well, yeah, I think Portugal should be going pretty deep in major tournaments. There's a lot of quality.
But in terms of the FPF, like if that is because I remember an interview he did shortly after the Serbia game where it's like, if we don't qualify for the World Cup, I'll leave. And I'm like, well,
yeah.
Well, great. That came off really tone deaf. And I think I have a contract until 2024 also comes off tone deaf because he has to understand that. And again, maybe he doesn't, but I don't think he's dumb, Matthew. I think he understands that his perception right now with the majority, and I think I'm safe in saying, I think the majority of the supporters of this national team would very much like to see a change at the top. Now, again, we don't run the FPF. The FPF has made its decision. It made its decision after failing to qualify directly for the World Cup. As soon as we knew that he was going to be the manager for these playoffs, and if the national team made it to the World Cup, he was going to continue on. And that's the decision that we as fans all have to live with. But he doesn't seem to take any responsibility publicly, which is, to me, a very arrogant way of going about things. When you flaunt your contracts, almost saying like you're untouchable, and maybe he is, which is even more frustrating as a fan. It's his arrogance. It's his lack of accountability. I didn't care for the manner last night in the press conference where he mentioned that Diogo Jota had asked to be subbed off, and then said, "Well, I wouldn't have made that sub, but that's a sub that I needed to make because Diogo Jota asked for it." Why don't you just say he asked to come off and just leave it at that? But it's like he questioned. It's almost like he almost knew that the substitutions were going to be questioned, but he wanted to let everybody know that substitution was not on him. And it's like, I get it, man. The accountability or the lack of accountability is what is frustrating, and it's almost like he's throwing it in the media's face. It happened when he was questioned about Pep not being replaced. It's like, I've got three center backs. I don't need a fourth. Well, Jesus, Matthew, he had a third and decided to bring in João Mario at the end of the Czech game. Now, that's funny because they won 4-0. But that's the part that frustrates me the most. Is like, if he's gonna stick around, we have to deal with it and we have to accept it. But he doesn't accept his role in the downfall of this national team, where he's not getting the best out of them. And now I'm fired up. What do you say to that?
Well, there's a whole lot to unpack there. I mean, first of all,
I apologize.
What I will say is that I don't really pay much attention to what managers say, either before the game or after the game, especially in press conferences. It doesn't matter which manager it is. It's just PR. They're just trying to spin it whatever way they can. I look at Seleção. He's a typical example. When a team loses, it's just trying to find excuses and trying to deflect any blame that they might have been responsible for. This is just normal. Santos is no different. The different thing about Santos is that he's very, very old. He's been in the game a long time. He's been with Portugal a very, very long time. And again, I need to separate what I agree with and what I just try and see, and what I try and see what's happening. I don't agree with a lot of it, but at the end of the day, as I said, some things are just out of everybody's control. And I just refuse to sort of go to games thinking with a sort of negative attitude. So I try and separate all that. But I mean, as I said with the game was the game. Portugal had chances and they didn't take them, and then Spain scored late. So the substitutions, Jota, I thought the William one was should have been discussed more. I mean, he wasn't great, and taking so long to take him off. So you could go through all this for hours. Santos' substitutions and squad selection. Yeah, I get it. I can see why people are frustrated. But at the end of the day, I think Santos has just been around for so long that everything he does is just quite predictable, and nothing he does, whether it be squad selection, whether it be substitutions, whether it be, I guess, tactics and stuff, nothing surprises me. Everything he does, I'm like, okay, I can see why he's doing that. I don't agree with it. I might not agree with it. I might hate it, but I can see what's going on in his brain and what he's trying to do. So there's always a logic in his mind with what he's doing. And you could break down a centre-back situation, which players he's brought up and which players he's played and all that. And that probably goes to a deeper issue with the UEFA Nations League and how that might actually be hurting a lot of European teams. But yeah, just going back to Santos and trying to wrap it up, like, everything he does is very predictable. There's just nothing out of the ordinary. And to expect anything different at this point would be quite foolish. He's not going to just somehow change, So I guess the only interesting thing now is to see what does he do. He's got a couple of months to reflect on this, and see what he does with the World Cup squad. But I said again, we've had 8 years of it, and why would you expect the next 2 months to be any different? It just does. It's not logical. So although people might be hoping for things to be different, it's just not going to happen. We might see a few changes here and there, but within his framework, I don't see it happening. What I wanted to just finish on as well is that, of course, he comes under huge criticism, and I get it. I talk to people, I talk to journalists. I'm not oblivious to these things. But I think maybe a lot of people are not as critical of the players as maybe they should be at times, and their mentality. So that's a whole nother situation. Maybe you want to get into that. But I think if you want to lay blame, but Santos is for sure a part of it, but I think the players also need to step up in a lot of situations and take more responsibility out on the pitch. They're the ones out there making it happen.
No, I think I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, Fernando Santos, in sports, it's always easier to replace and blame the manager than it is the individuals under his wing there. But I know that Tom tweeted out that I think Fernando Santos has been or was, I should say, with a lot of the pundits on Portuguese TV coming under fire once again. And I don't think the FPF is oblivious to that either. But for me, Matthew, we've seen this now for 8 years. The first 2 years were pretty good, in terms of results. And just bear with me here as I go through the last 6. World Cup qualification for 2018, they finished first. Lost in the World Cup in the round of 16 in those 4 matches at the 2018 World Cup. 1 win in 4 matches. They obviously won the Nations League in 2019. People can say whatever they want about the Nations League. It is another trophy for the federation, and something that they obviously hold in high regard in terms of this tournament, because it's something that you talked about briefly that I want to get into in a bit. But 2019, they win the Nations League. 2022 or 2020 European qualification, they finished second, but they still go automatically. They again lose in the round of 16 in a major tournament to Belgium. 1 win in 4 matches, 2 losses in that tournament. And then, as we mentioned before, the losing to France at home in the last group match of Nations League 2021. Losing the qualification, or losing on the last day of World Cup qualifying at home to Serbia in the dramatic fashion that it was. And then this Nations League, where Spain gave you a gift by losing to Switzerland at home 2-0, and yet the door could not be closed and you couldn't get through. All that to say, the pattern's been building, and yet we might be beating a dead horse here, Matthew, and I'm not trying to either sway you to go one way or another here, but the pattern has been building, and that I think is the most frustrating thing is, and you mentioned it, we know almost to a T what is going to happen when situations like this arise with Fernando Santos at the helm, and yet the FPF, for whatever reason, continues to be like, it's almost like they're expecting something different when everyone can see that the same thing's going to happen over and over. It's just a frustrating part of being a supporter of this national team, because while I host this podcast, I'm not a tactical guy. I can just see what's going on and figure out, all right, what's working, what's not working. But the folks in charge of running this federation, with the talent that is currently assembled, it's shocking to me that they continue to just accept that qualifying for tournaments is good enough. And that's the part is that just clearly is one of the things that frustrates me the most about the current situation with this national team right now.
I think what a lot of people don't understand is that football clubs is just like any other business, banking business, or it doesn't matter what industry it is. Football clubs is just another business. And when you look at the FPF, in a way, there's a lot of similarities where you have a lot of these old guys who are in charge of it, who don't have a whole lot of accountability. You never really, we know who these guys are, but they never really have to come out and defend anything they do or any decisions they make. And so, again, under that framework, everything that they do, again, makes sense. Clearly, his success in 2016 has brought him massive load of credit. Their decision to give him a very long contract, again, got them into a situation where there's just really nowhere else to go. So it also depends on who else is available. But yeah, I don't really know where else to go with it. I mean, like I say, I'm not sure how much he is to blame for yesterday. I mean, I thought they played well. They created all the chances. And I saw it against Serbia. I saw it last night where Santos is come on, guys, move forward, move forward. He's screaming at them, move forward, and they're going backwards. So what do you want him to do? Like I said, you need to sometimes separate Santos and separate the players. And this just comes down to mentality, human mentality. I've been in games, obviously nowhere near a high level, but you see this time and time again. When players know you need a draw, then you sit back. It's just human nature, and nothing can really no one can do anything about it except the players on the pitch. So look, as I said, I get all the criticism going his way, but I thought that the tactics yesterday, knowing Spain were going to have a lot of the ball, weren't bad. And again, I see it from a different perspective. For me, it was just another game, and Portugal had chances, they didn't take them, and then Morata comes up late with the goal. So, on the way, I do so much football, Danny, that I was on the way back from the stadium. I'm staying in Braga, beautiful view I have here, but I've got an old school Talio out there in the church. But I was just walking back up here thinking, I'm done with it. This game, I'm finished with it. I'm not going to read anything about it. It's over. I watched the highlights this morning. I'm talking to you about it, but that's it. After this game for me is ancient history. I'll just move on. And as I said, look forward to the World Cup, not with massive expectations. As I said, I think the UEFA Nations League is hurting all European teams. I really do. I think it's great for the UEFA, and I think people thought it was a good thing when it started. But I think now you might be starting to see that the South American teams are having an advantage with just playing normal friendlies like they were back in the day, where you can do so much more experimentation, where there's really no pressure. And, we saw those first 4 UEFA Nations League games where it was like something ridiculous, 4 games in 12 days, which came straight after the season. And just useless, really. You're trying to be competitive, but it's just useless. So that might be another part of it. But, I'm not sure where to go with it, apart from everything that I've said. I mean, so many games. You talk about that Uruguay game. You talk about the game against Belgium. Little things happen. Diaz hits the post against Belgium. Like, so many little things happen in games where if it was 6 centimeters here, 6 centimeters there, the entire narrative is different. The entire discussion is different. So I try and see it like that. But as I said, I understand everything you're saying, and I get it. It's cool.
And so you alluded to it again, and it was one of the notes that I had written down myself. Is we've called a lot of fans have called, and I believe we are at the top of the hour according to the church across the street. Matthew, is that correct?
Well, you don't need an alarm clock when you're staying in these places in Portugal, because the church bells are going to do that for you. Yeah.
Fantastic. So one of the things that this is so great. I love having a little ambiance in this interview. But the Nations League in the beginning was to take away from friendlies, because it's more competitive match means more eyes on these matches, means more money for these federations and for UEFA itself. And it's Portugal obviously has put and again, my opinion here, Portugal has put a priority on the Nations League, and maybe because it won the first one, where they don't call up maybe a younger squad to have some sort of youth develop in the senior side, where you saw last night where Spain had 4 of their 5 substitutes yesterday were 20 years of age or younger. And not that was the deciding factor in the game. And actually it kind of was, maybe just because of what it brought in terms of pressure in the match and how it kind of changed everything. But it's just an approach that the Federation and Fernando Santos has not taken in terms of the Nations League, where especially with I always thought that this Nations League was a huge extended training camp for the World Cup, given that the World Cup was in the winter this year, because of scheduling the way it did, having in essence 2 tournaments in a calendar year. I think it's hurting the development of the younger players to come up to the senior side, because it's a dependency on what you know. And again, that's a Fernando Santos characteristic, where while he's given a lot of players their first caps, it doesn't seem to come. I mean, the last 4 or 5 years here, there hasn't been a lot of friendlies where you can just sit guys like Ronaldo and Pep and João Moutinho and Rui Patrice up until just recently, guys to be like, all right, what can this team do without player A? What does this team look like on the field without player A? And it's like, I agree with you. I think these, especially with the Nations League, and we would be fans would be thrilled if we beat France or drew with France and got into the semifinals, because who doesn't want to win a trophy? With that said, has it been a detriment to the development of this national team over the last few years?
Yeah, 100%. I saw it. That's the conclusion I came to last night. I hadn't really thought about it that much in detail, but yeah, I mean, the expectation, and especially after Portugal won the first one, it's a trophy. I don't really care about it, but I would really like to see the next Portugal manager maybe just treat these Nations League games as friendlies. If they were friendlies, we would have seen David Carmo, we would have seen Jaló, we would have seen more of Vitinha probably. You probably would have seen Gonçalo Ramos last night.
Interesting that both he and Pedro Neto were left off the team sheet yesterday.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's hurting them. As I said, just with the fatigue factor, it's hurting them, and with this need to win. It's just so many competitive games. There's just really no friendlies anymore. And okay, some of those friendlies were pretty boring, but they weren't boring for the players getting their first international cap. They weren't boring for players, giving Santos and everyone else a chance to see what they can do on the international stage. And you see it in club football. You see it with Barcelona, sometimes out of necessity, sometimes not, where you only see a look at Antonio Silva right now. I could go on. I can't think of a lot of other players, but he's an obvious example. You only see what these guys have got when you get them in the team, and generally you only see what they've got once you give them a consistent run of games. If you look at Carvalhal last year with Braga, for instance, we saw Rodrigo Gomes, Vitinha, Braga, one of the best examples of that. So. You've got to give these guys a chance. Otherwise, you're just never going to see what they're made of. So we've lost all of that now. Santos is under first choice, in his mind, strongest team. We've got to win this game, got to win this game, got to win this game. It never ends. There's just no end to it. So as I said, I think the Nations League is hurting. And I think you might see that in the World Cup. But again, it comes down to manager's preference. But I would like to see manager perhaps just say, okay, Nations League, we just don't really care. We're going to do our best, but we're also going to use it primarily as the friendlies used to be, and just bring young guys in, see what they're made of. And of course, with Portugal, it's been that central defense, which has been the biggest problem in that area. Inácio into the squad, doesn't get on the pitch. David Carvalho, Jaló. So what's the point? It's just completely pointless.
Yeah, it's been a revolving door in terms of like the backup. Like, because, with starters, if both healthy, Ruben Dias and Pep are going to be the ones that are going to be there. But, we still don't have that answer as to who's going to be the solid pair, or to be paired with Ruben Dias going forward. We don't know that yet. And
we knew it was going to be those three guys. I mean, it was obvious. Tom and I wrote an article in March, and it was clear it was going to be one of those three guys. I guess everyone has their preference about who that should be. But they haven't even got on the pitch, so that just sucks, and it's detrimental for the long-term future of Portugal. It's detrimental for the World Cup. I mean, Pep, I'm worried about Pep for the World Cup.
Yeah, me too.
So, but again, going back to Santos and his decision to play Danilo and Pep when Dias was out, now he plays Danilo and Ruben Dias. And in his mind, it's obvious, well, you got to give these guys as much time together as you can before the World Cup. You need to give them chemistry time and get used to each other. So it's completely logical that he does that. And he doesn't go for one of the young guys, which again comes back to what we said, this need to win. But it's also he's looking forward and trying to give these guys, they don't play together. They've never played together. So training is training. So, you need to give them as much time as possible. So again, what he's doing is completely logical in his mind. But it's also, we can see it from a different perspective where long-term it's not great. And if something happens, Pep might not be fit. His form might be deteriorating rapidly. I'm sure we'll probably get on to Ronaldo soon. So yeah, it is what it is. I said to someone last night, the press officer I met in Israel from the under-17 team, I said, it might be kind of fate that we see Santos and Ronaldo and Pep sort of sailing off in the caravel into the distance, all sort of, hugely influential in 2016, but all just coming to the end for Portugal at exactly the same time.
Yeah, one of the things that I had discussed at the beginning of the summer, because as you mentioned, like the Nations League, right out of the jump, as soon as club football was done, I think maybe a week or two after, we're already in the first 4 games, and yeah, it was like 4 games in like 10 days, something like that. And I was of the opinion that those June matches, and again, I've talked about Nations League being a huge training camp and an extended look for the World Cup, but I felt that those first 4 matches were the perfect opportunity to sit guys like Ronaldo and Pep and João Moutinho and Rui Patricio and guys that either were on the latter part of their careers or at least guaranteed spots for Qatar in November and hopefully December, and be able to bring in guys that need to find their spot in this squad sooner rather than later. The June matches were for that. The September matches were to kind of, gather what information you got from those young call-ups, add that with the with Ronaldo and then Pep and then Moutinho, if you're going to bring those guys back in September to kind of start gelling a little bit, because it was, those were going to be the last 2 matches prior to the Nigeria friendly being announced. Those 2 September matches were going to be the last time that this group was going to be together prior to the World Cup. That was the approach I hoped was going to happen. Obviously, that wasn't the approach that was taken, and it's kind of similar to what you were kind of alluding to where the Nations League just didn't, the priority on the Nations League, I should say, is hurting, and not only Portugal but other teams in Europe as well. And
look at France, mate. Look at I mean, really some of those results we saw in those first 4 games were just ridiculous. And that's what I think a lot of people get confused with. I think a lot of the people commenting online, I'm sure they play a lot of Football Manager. They probably play a lot of FIFA. And life is not a computer game, mate. These players
wouldn't it be easier, though, Matthew?
Yeah. Hold down your speed button and there's no fatigue, yeah. But players are not machines. Players are not in a computer game. I think some people, honestly, they get these things confused because of the amount of hours they play these games. Players are human beings, mate. They've got families, they got dramas with their wife, they got dog that's sick, whatever it is, they got things going on. And you probably saw that just with Rafa Silva. Who knows what's going on with him? No one knows. He's a human being just like you and me. He's not going to come out and disclose any of this information. So there's that to it also, but the schedule that these players are getting punished with from all sides, from UEFA demanding this, from FIFA demanding that, from their clubs demanding this, and the league and cups, and it's just relentless, absolutely relentless. And the amount of break they got at the end of last summer, now they've got to go straight into the World Cup. It's just brutal. So, I think that's a huge part of it that people are maybe not sort of seeing, that's the reason why you do get a lot of these performances that are not up to standard. You're not going to get 10 out of 10 from any player game after game after game. It's just not possible. So, I think that helps us sort of explain why we see some of the things we do. Look at Italy. I mean, although I know they just got over the line to finish top of it, but they didn't even qualify for the World Cup. So, I think that should be really taken into account, just how punishing the schedule is on these players, and also the fact that they're just human beings like you and me. We don't have whatever job you do, you don't go in there every single day killing it. Like you,
sure.
You have some off days. But when this happens in such a big stage with such huge anticipation, then I think sometimes people are a bit too quick to jump on players' backs. But I think everything we've said is it's just part of the whole story. It's just trying to explain why we've seen some of the things we've seen.
Matthew, that logical and astute answer doesn't really, sell newspapers. You know what I'm saying? But it's true.
I don't read newspapers, Danny. I just don't.
What is the time you reference to a newspaper? What is that?
I just don't let any outside influence. There's just no need, like some things obviously just obvious, what happens in a game. But I've always just tried to separate myself from all the noise, and just tell it how I see it. Try and stay kind of calm and rational. And, obviously I support Portugal. Portugal, I have Portuguese blood, and I want Portugal to win every game, but I know that's not possible.
Sure.
And, as long as they're not getting flogged and demolished, then, it is what it is. And we've just talked about Santos. There's really nowhere else to go with it. I don't know really where else you can go with it. It is what it is. And we've got a couple of months to the World Cup. And, hopefully things go their way. As I said, you could break any game down, Danny, almost any game, and say if this didn't happen, if that happened, tiny little margins could make a huge difference. So if everyone's fit, then Portugal have a chance. As I said, I think the South American teams are way out ahead. But I just refuse to let negativity come into my world when it comes to the Seleção. I just won't let it happen. We've had the bullshit pandemic. You've got dramas left and right with stuff in your personal life and whatever it is. And I just refuse to let that sort of negativity and I guess ideas come into the way. I still see the Seleção as a little bright part of my life, and I still enjoy the anticipation and the hope that they're going to win and do well. The likelihood of that obviously is different for everybody, but I just try and see it in a positive way, knowing, as I said, that Santos is going nowhere. And, a lot of the problems we see is just some of them, unfortunately, predictable.
Yeah, we're talking with Matthew Marshall here on episode number 67 of the Seleção podcast. You can follow Matthew on Twitter at NoobsCorp. That's NoobzCorp. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like button. You can see his Twitter handle there. We'll also put obviously his Twitter and recap of yesterday on the show notes for both the YouTube and on the podcast here. So make sure you're reading Matthew's stuff on the regular. I too have that. I at least I try. I try to have that perspective where the Seleção is, in terms of sporting teams, it's my number one. And while this team can be as frustrating as it has been over the last few years, you nailed it. There is still part of me that when that national anthem plays and when the team is announced and when that whistle blows, there is something that takes over me to where it's like, all right, this could be the day. This could be the day that they either they win the group or they get through to qualify for a tournament, or we could see something special from these multi-talented players. So I'm with you there. I'm with you there in wholeheartedly, because it is this team has such a profound, deep spot in my heart and in my soul, to where all I want is for this team to succeed. And I think that's where the majority of the frustration comes from with the fans is. They're so entrenched in wanting to see this team, especially this generation of players, do well and go deep in tournaments. And and again, expectations are one thing. The realities of each situation, they differ from, as you mentioned, player to player, game to game. So it's the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of being a fan, whether for whatever team or sport that you have in your heart there. So I
don't support a club, Danny, and I think a lot of people, they do. I know that most people do. So I get all of my excitement, really. I go to a lot of games. I'm excited. I just love the game. I love the sport. I love the anticipation. Every time I walk into a stadium, Danny, I've just got a huge smile on my face. Doesn't matter if it's São João de Ver the other day, 3rd division. Doesn't matter if it's Porto against Sporting. It doesn't matter what it is. Every game, I just have this huge smile on my face. I'm thinking, how lucky am I to be here? How good is this? And but as a journalist, you also have to try and separate that. For me, it's the Portugal. But I see in club football, I see a lot of journalists that just their love for their club is so strong, but I think they find it hard to separate that from the journalist work they have to do. So it's kind of a fine line, but yeah, it's a different world when you're talking to managers, talking to players, and I've become far, far less critical than I used to be now that I'm in this fortunate and privileged position. So I think maybe people should also understand it's different to say something online or something, but it's different to stand in front of a player or a manager and say it. Two completely different things. So again, there's a whole lot to it, but yeah, I understand people's passion and I get it. I 100% get it. So yeah, we'll just have to see what happens. I mean, I wanted to get this out there, Danny, before I'm not sure where we're going to go there. So before you move on to, I guess, Ronaldo. I'm really looking forward. I'm really looking forward to Jose Mourinho managing Portugal. I believe it's going to happen 100%. It's just a matter of when the time is right. But I firmly believe that he will manage Portugal, and I'm looking forward to see what he can do. I'm really looking forward to see what he can do.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think when he does take over, we might have to wait till 2024. Obviously, he's going well with Roma. He's not going to be looking for a way out of there right now. But, Portugal's squad is so young that I still think by the time he takes over, he's going to have so much talent at his disposal. He won't have Ronaldo, he won't have Pep, but that might not matter by the time he takes over because some of these players are just so good and so young. So I just wanted to get that out there because I firmly believe 1,000% Jose Mourinho will manage Portugal at some point.
Man, that's huge. So that's your belief? That's not anything and obviously we're not trying to break any like managerial news here, but do you think that? I guess I'll ask you this: Do you think he would be the next coach, or do you just think that it's an eventuality that he will at some point? Because mentioned it. He's mentioned in interviews before that he would like to coach this national team before his coaching career is.
Exactly. You know he wants to, and I would say he will. It's just about timing, Danny. I mean, if Portugal get knocked out of the group stage in the World Cup, Santos will go. But I don't think Mourinho would leave Roma. That's a possibility. I don't see it. But as I said, I just think eventually.
But they qualified for the World Cup. I mean, expectation-wise, Fernando Santos is still good through 2024. That's according.
It was made clear that he has to at least get out of the group stage, and so yeah, there's all that to it. But yeah, I mean that's all hypothetical. I just wanted to get it out there because I've spoken to so many people who don't think that he will manage Portugal, and I believe with everything I've got, he will manage Portugal. And I'm looking forward to it. I really am looking forward to seeing what he will do tactically and motivationally. And I'm really looking forward to it. When that happens, I don't know. But it's something I've got on my horizon. I think life is just so important to have goals. That's not a goal, but to have things to look forward to in a way, whether it's in your own life, whether it's career-wise, whether it's, whatever it is. So that kind of keeps me going in a way to try and, when I see some things with Santos I don't really like. But I just wanted to get that out there. We can move on.
Yeah, hey, that's great. I love it. Let's talk about you mentioned the coach can't always be the blame. The players have to be accountable. And I want to tread very lightly here because I don't pretend to know any kind of feeling. I don't know where Cristiano Ronaldo's head is right now. He's dealt with a lot of stuff, both on the club level and away from the field, that some folks, I pray, never have to. But I just want to talk about his influence over this national team, and I guess perceived influence. I've talked about the last 6 years have gone, not maybe to the expectation of what fans and maybe even pundits have hoped for this national team. In my heart of hearts, Tom, I'm always talking to Tom Matthew. In my heart of hearts, I feel that Cristiano Ronaldo probably has quite a bit of influence with the federation. This is me from. I have no way of knowing this for sure. I just think that arguably one of the greatest players of all time, to some maybe the greatest player of all time, if he didn't like something that was going on with the national team and he voiced it to the federation, I would think that the federation would try to appease him, given his star player status. Am I off in thinking that if Cristiano Ronaldo wanted Fernando Santos gone, that Fernando Santos would be gone.
That was one of the reasons I used in that lengthy article I wrote about, putting all the reasons out there why Santos is going nowhere. And one of them was he has the full backing of the players and Ronaldo. So, and you see it with all the players when they're commenting in the pre-match conferences, they're fully behind Santos. They fully believe in what he's doing and his tactics. And you can't underestimate the bond that they gained from winning 2016. That's just something that will be with them for their entire lives.
But is that something similar, Matthew, to where, like, how you're saying, like, you don't take much of what a head coach says prior or post game? Like,
no, I don't.
I guess what are the players really supposed to say? They have to provide a united front. I mean, you would want them to provide a united front, and that united front is understandable because what's there to gain in having dissension between players and coaches openly and in the public? But I mean, what else are they trying? What else would they say in terms of trying to at least show a perceived united front? I guess.
Yeah, really interesting point, Danny. And I don't know. I guess you would have to compare it with what other players say about their manager. Maybe players just can feel the heat coming on their manager, and they feel the need to sort of come out and change the narrative a bit in public opinion. Maybe that's what they're doing. So yeah, interesting question. I hadn't really thought about it from that point of view, but I guess there's a lot going into it. As I said, the bond that they have and the belief that they have. Obviously, they have to be confident for every game. They believe they're going to win every game. But yeah, I think part of it's probably like that. They're just trying to, players and managers are not silly. They know that they can divert the narrative. Obviously, when it's so anti-Santos, there's not that much you can do with it, but they're trying to just dampen it a little bit from their perspective anyway, just to bring some other ideas out into the public sphere, I guess. But I can't remember where we sort of started with that, but I just think that Ronaldo, we knew for so long that he is not he's not a normal player. And we knew, I mean, so many people have come out and said Santos is finished. I don't know how many years journalists and people have been, and time again, he proves them wrong. Time and time, they have egg on their faces. And I just sort of sat back the whole time. But I think last night was a turning point for me, Danny, where someone asked me recently, what do you see in players? Like, what makes them stand out to you? If I'm doing, I guess, scouting type stuff. And my answer is always is that players can see things before other people do, but they can also kind of get there before other people do. And it's just a split second. It's such a small fraction of time or speed of thought, speed of movement. And Ronaldo was obviously, such an elite player that he had those gifts, and that's obvious. But last night I just saw that so many situations, he's like half a step too slow here, half a second too slow there. You saw it with that chance he had when he had the ball inside the 18-yard box. And yet, I got to say, yesterday was a turning point for me, Danny, where I thought the decline is definitely on now. Whether it's contributed by his lack of game time at Manchester United, whether it's just age, the inevitable mother time catching up on him, I don't know. Why he played 90 minutes against Czech Republic, just bizarre. I mean, that game was over with half an hour to go.
Sure.
So I guess Santos justified keeping him on last night because he did have that chance to get the draw late on. But yeah, we've known that again. It goes back to what I said. We just know these things. It's almost like this is inevitable that Ronaldo will just call the shots. Whether that's Santos should have more balls, some more strength to say, look, no, I'm the manager and you got to come off now, or whatever it is. Yes, that's again more legitimate stuff I can see and understand. But is it going to happen? Maybe. I don't know. Will it happen in the World Cup? I don't know. All we can go is of what we've seen and what we've known. So yeah, I got to say, last night was a bit disturbing for me, seeing Ronaldo, for me anyway, showing signs that it's his time at the top of the game is really, it's over.
Yeah, I think we've all kind of seen it coming, but I think last night was more of a drastic showing of it. Matthew, it almost felt like you saw the level kind of drop. It's like it was almost palpable and something that it was tangible, which is very weird to see and weird to feel, because obviously you just it declines and everything kind of you just see like that, and it just felt yesterday it went from here to here. Touches. I mean, obviously he's 37 years old. He's not going to outrun anybody anymore. He's not going to, that first touch and the step overs and the glitz and the glamour of him being 18 years old, debuting with Man U and at the 2004 Euro. Those days are over, but there's still a quality player there, but it's not the way it used to be. And again, playing 90 minutes against the Czech Republic, I'll never understand that. And for one, I don't mind him starting. I've had folks on to where it's like the discussion is we need to start having the discussion about is his guaranteed 90 minutes a thing anymore? I don't think it should be, but I also don't think that him coming off the bench is his best spot for this team right now at all, because all it does is just lead to second guessing of Fernando Santos or whoever the manager would be. It's like, why didn't you bring him on? Why did you bring him on so late? And to me, he's much more of a distraction coming off the bench than he is playing 60 to 65 minutes. That's just my opinion. What I didn't care for yesterday was, again, I'm not gonna begrudge him for his decline in quality, because as you mentioned, you said mother time over here, we say father time. Both of those folks are undefeated. They will eventually get you. But what I didn't care for, and again, this is me just from a fan's point of view, it's now a third time that he's thrown that captain's armband in frustration. I know it's not part of the uniform, but as the captain, as the man who is supposed to be the face of this federation, and I don't care for the throwing of the armband at the end of a match. And I didn't care for the way that he left the field when all of his other teammates are talking with one another, shaking hands. Again, it's frustrating. I get that. I mean, the passion that he's shown over the years, you want him to be a sore loser. But at the same time, there's also you've just gone to battle with 10 other teammates and your coaching staff, and yet you dart towards the locker room without so much as saying, guys, we tried our best, keep your heads up, stuff like that. That's the part that frustrates me, especially at this point in his career, where I don't think his play can excuse that kind of behavior.
Yeah, I didn't catch any of that, Danny. So I didn't see that. I was busy with other things, but he's untouchable. You can for sure say that it's to the detriment of the team here and there. The attitude you just spoke about is not great in a group situation in any business, in any team. But yeah, he's just at such a status and such a level through what he's done in his career and the international
which he's earned.
Again, these discussions we're having have been around for years now. His playing time and all these sort of things. And again, they just, that's on and on. We can go on about it. So again, the only thing to think about now is, will it keep happening in the World Cup? And you would have to assume probably so. I mean, Portugal's press has just been bad for so long, so many years. Even when Ronaldo was young and faster and fitter, Portugal's press, especially when they try and execute it in the opposition half, the opposition can get out of it so easy. So in a way, it makes sense why Santos sort of sets up, even sometimes not even on the halfway line, behind the halfway line. It's pissed me off for years and years and years. But again, so many of these things, we've just seen it for so many years. It's just expecting anything different now would just be foolish. So yeah, all we can do is just see what happens in the World Cup and hope for the best. You know, you need a little bit of luck in the World Cup for so many different reasons. Portugal with a little bit of luck can go deep, but it's just no one knows what's going to happen. Another thing I just wanted to say that I didn't think about too much last night. Obviously, I just mentioned the decline of Ronaldo being a little bit obvious to me was just, you know, the first time I saw Ronaldo live, it was a big moment. Same with Messi. And after a while, I think anything in life, Danny, you can become a bit complacent. And last night, I had to sort of remind myself just how lucky I am or have been to see Ronaldo live in stadiums, because it's not going to be happening for that much longer, I wouldn't think. So, yeah, everything we've said, I think, is valid. But I think also you need to also just remember that his time is coming to a close pretty soon. And we also just need to understand, what he's done in his whole career rather than just, how it's affecting the team at the moment.
Yeah, recency bias can sometimes take over. Someone looking over at someone's career. I remember the last time you were on with us. I think we had just spoken of the comeback against Ireland. I think you were at that game. I think was in Fahu.
And those 2 late goals.
Yeah.
And I was just about to say that too, Danny. Before you go on, I think Ronaldo's best skill now is probably just jumping up and heading the ball into the net. I don't think that's going to be lost too much. His anticipation and his ability to jump high probably won't be expected as much as his speed and his other movements around. So, you might see a situation to get the best out of him. You just need to send more crosses into the box, maybe. I don't know. Yeah,
and that was relevant on that last goal against the Czech Republic, where he went in the air. Ball found. He's obviously trying to score, but also in a situation like that, the ball can also fall to someone at the back of the box there, and Diogo Jota was the recipient of that 4th goal. How would you? I guess we're talking about Ronaldo here. What would your ideal? I guess if you were running the team. Would you start it? Yeah, let's just do that. Let's do the Football Manager FIFA stuff here. If you were running the team right now, Matthew, would you still start him? Would you start him? Would you bring him off the bench? What would with Ronaldo the way he is right now? How would you handle it?
I haven't played Football Manager for a long time, Danny, but I don't really disagree with what much of Santos is doing. Formation-wise and personnel-wise, I don't think yesterday. I'd bring in Paulinho next to Neves. I'd make that change, but I don't usually go into this territory about what I would do. But Leão Jota, that's a difficult situation. You can see why he's always starting Bernardo and Bruno Fernandes. So the only other one is Ronaldo. And as I said, I think it depends on the opposition. I think it's what are you trying to do? Are you trying to send balls behind the defense and run onto them? Ronaldo's not going to really be the guy for that anymore. Do you want him to drop deep, get on the ball, and have your other guys push forward? We see that a lot with the fullbacks pushing forward, which is one of the reasons you see Bernardo coming deeper. Are you going to persist with that? You want Ronaldo to come deeper and be a part of that build-up? Yeah, he's a good guy for that. Do you want to send heaps of crosses into the box against central defenders who are average? Yesterday, central defenders average. Did they exploit that type of tactics? No. So it all depends on the situation, the game time, but and his general fitness levels. But I think I would still start him, but I would just be quicker to get him off.
Sure.
And I think getting him off would send a huge message, not only to him, but also to everybody else, that there's game time here for you. And I think, it's hurting Team a lot, leaving him on for 90 minutes. It's just denying other guys game time, whether it's a Gonçalo Ramos, whether it's a Pedro Neto, I don't know. So it's hurting those guys. And it's really not benefiting the team at all to leave him on sometimes for 90 minutes. You can the only benefit is him getting more goals. I can't see any reason why you would do it. Maybe it's to give him some fitness because he hasn't been getting much game time, but I don't see it. But yeah, I would basically keep starting him but I would just take him off and just show him in no uncertain terms that he's not untouchable. That's what I would do. And there might be some situations where you wanted to go in behind a defense that was playing a higher line, and then you might bring him off the bench. Let's say if you needed him and you wanted to send crosses into the box and get him jumping high and using that part of his ability. So, yeah, I don't usually get into what I would do, Danny, because you know, I'm not a manager. But yeah, you asked me, and that's my answer.
Fair enough. Lastly, Matthew, what do we do now for the next 2 months as fans, as pundits, as folks who, you know, what I guess in general, what do you think the conversation is with the FPF, with the team, with Fernando Santos, with like what is I guess these, in your opinion, what do you think these next 2 months kind of look like for this national team?
Just hope that no major players pick up a big injury. That's really all you can hope for. Unfortunately, we didn't see any of those young central defenders get any game time, so it doesn't matter what they do. As I said, I think the team kind of picks itself. We didn't talk about Nuno Mendes, but he was phenomenal, Danny.
Yeah,
he was really the only. What a player he's turning into. Such a juxtaposition from what the defensive stuff we saw from Mario Rui, some of that defensive junk we saw from Guerreiro against Kimmich when they got smashed against Germany, where they just stand back. Nuno Mendes gets in the face and he wins the ball. He just shut down Ferran Torres, and it was great to see. So I wanted to get that out there. But I think the team kind of picks itself. I don't see Neves has become a starter. As I said, Bruno and Bernardo are, you know, they're not going anywhere. Like Leão, Jota, there's really not a lot of room to maneuver for Santos when it comes to that first choice 11. So you're just hoping that the main protagonists stay fit. Ruben Dias would be one. But yeah, with no friendlies and nowhere else to go, you're just not going to see any change in what Santos is doing and what he's thinking. We've just discussed it all about Ronaldo and other things. So I would say you just hope that some key players don't get injured, and just hope for the best. We know who the teams are in the group stage. You know, I've always said that draw, if you get to the knockout stages, depending on the way the draw opens up, you saw it with England. And, you know, you need a bit of luck with the draw sometimes to avoid some of the heavy hitters and have an easier run to the final. You need luck in games. So, again, I can totally understand people's pessimism with Santos. I get it, mate. I'm not. You know, I watch football. I know what's going on. But again, I kind of just refuse to allow that to come into my thinking. And I just hope for the best. I hope Seleção will go there, win the World Cup, send Ronaldo off. Whether that happens, I don't know. The likelihood of that happening, I don't know. But you know, I still hope for the best, and I had that little part of it in my life to sort of give me some hope and some joy.
Well, you know what? This national team has a way of, when you think they're going to do something positive, they don't, and then when the chips are down and you think that they've got nothing left, they could go on a run, and it's another point in how frustrating and a bit of a roller coaster ride being a fan of this team can be. But yeah, I think you hope for the best. At this point, I think it's, you know, the old adage of you know, the definition of insanity is doing everything the same way and hoping for a different result. We're going to try it again in 2 months and see if the result's going to be any different. But I think at the end of the day, that's all really what we can hold on to is, you know, what if, you know, the hope is yeah, we're gonna try to win the World Cup. You know, who says that we can't? The likelihood, who's to say? You know, there's a lot that can happen, not only with this national team, but with other national teams in the next couple of months too. So
there can only be one winner, Danny, and there's a lot of losers.
There can only be one, my friend. All right, Matthew, thank you so much. I know, and you know what? A big credit to you, especially this summer. You know, you've gotten to travel a bit throughout Europe, and you know, covering not only the national team, but, you know, under 21s. I think you went to the under 19 Euros,
under 17 in Israel. 17. Yeah,
and. Yeah, I guess in a real quick way, tell us about your summer, and are you looking forward? Are you going to be able to give yourself a little bit of a break because you're not only
next summer?
No, this past summer. Talk to me about, like, all the traveling you were able to do, not only on national team duty, but also you're going to club matches, not just Primera Liga. You're going to second and third matches here. Hold on, I think I might have someone coming in. Who are you? It's my 4-year-old. Oh, buddy. But yeah, Matthew, go ahead and hold on, buddy. How long has how's the summer of travel been for you and getting to see all these different kinds of matches?
Well, Danny, being addicted to things is somehow in a lot of people's nature, and a lot of things you can get addicted to are kind of bad for you. So I prefer to be addicted to football. I love it. I just love it. Every single game, doesn't matter. I never take accreditations for granted. Being in a privileged position of being able to talk to players, managers, and being on the inside of things, I don't take it for granted. But also, I've worked to get there. Also, so I spoke to Tom I saw Tom the other day before I flew to Prague, and I said I could easily give up the club stuff, Tom, if I needed to slow down and just. But I couldn't stop with the Portuguese thing. So I'll keep doing that. I spoke to I actually saw the under-17 press officer who I met in Israel. I don't know if you probably caught that podcast I did where I interviewed him and a couple of other people there. And, when you meet people in a place like Israel, I saw him yesterday and I hadn't seen him for ages. And he went to shake my hand. I said, no, buddy, it's hug time. Let's hug it out. Because you go through those things and you make these friends. And I was speaking to him about next summer. You've got under 17, under 19, and under 21. So I'm kind of I've got that in my future, and figuring out how much of that I'll be able to go to and see. So I just love it. I just love having the ability. I'm in another fortunate position where I can work anywhere I have an internet connection. So I realize that nothing lasts forever, Danny. Whether that's Ronaldo, whether that's me, whether that's my job. I just realize I'm in a lucky situation right now, and I'm just taking advantage of that to the max, and just living it to the max and getting out there. And I don't take myself that seriously, mate. I don't take the whole journalism thing massively seriously. I try and do it in a sort of light-hearted, fun way, and give people a little bit of something different in that sphere, And if people dig it, that's cool. If you don't dig it, that's cool. I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. But at least I think hopefully people can see that I'm genuine and I got passion and I love what I'm doing. And that's really it, mate. I'm loving it, and I hope other people are loving it too. And football is just awesome. I love it. The anticipation, the unpredictability of it, the joy, the pain, and I just love it, mate. I can't get enough of it.
Well, you got a fan over here, man. I love your work. I love that you've been able to come on the pod now for a few times, and I hope you get to enjoy a little bit of a break before getting back out on the road and doing the club thing. And then are we? I don't want to figure out Tom's business model here, but is anyone heading to Qatar as we speak, or are we going to be doing it from the comforts of our? There's a smile on your face there, Matthew. Are we able to head to Qatar, or is that in discussion? I guess,
mate. When you asked me to come on this podcast, I was still in Prague, and I had to get a connecting flight through Geneva, and then there was a chance that there was a problem with the second flight. I might have been cutting it fine to get to Braga, so I didn't say I was going to come onto your pod until I basically touched down in Porto, and I knew I was going to be able to get here on time, because I told Tom never tell anyone where I'm going to go. Because I don't want to jinx it, mate. I've got flights, I've got trains. If I miss any one of those things, I might not get to a game in time. So I never tell anyone where I'm going to be or where I'm going to be going. And you probably notice I'll just pop up probably an hour before the game, 45 minutes, sometimes half an hour. Here I am. I don't give anyone a heads up into anything I'm doing. So, I'm going to be laying low for a week or two, and then I'll be popping up around the place. And then with Qatar, there's a good chance someone from Portugal will be there, let's say.
All right. Very mysterious, Matthew. Very mysterious. I like it. My friend, thank you so much for coming on. I know it's been the travel is something I can only imagine someone in your spot, but I know you enjoy it. I know it's I enjoy hearing that that you enjoy the privilege of doing it, and that's something that I don't think goes unnoticed and goes I think it's something to be celebrated, and I think we're all lucky to have someone like you being at the matches, contributing to Portugal.net, and just being around the national teams and the club side for the site and for the game. So I appreciate you making time. I appreciate. I appreciate the candor in which you provide your answers, because I'm not saying that that everyone does the opposite here, but I just think your perspective is a bit refreshing when it comes to, it's just this, it's not life or death. It's just football sometimes. And you could just, you could take it for what it is, and you let it impact you the way you want to, you're cool, calm, collected. And I think if more fans were like that, one, it'd be a much more boring place, but also I think we'd have our heads more level. But greatly appreciate you coming on. Really do.
Thanks I really appreciate your words, Danny. I just want to leave everyone with this. Life is just up and downs. And football is up and downs too. And the reason why people like football is because it's kind of a reflection of life. But I think in life, getting too high, getting too low can be problematic. So that's why with the football, I just try to do the same thing, just keep it on a pretty even level and just small fluctuations. But yeah, thanks for having me on, mate. It's been a while, and we probably won't speak for a while again. So, mate, Força Portugal.
Absolutely. I'm gonna let you rest, man. And that's a sharp shirt, by the way. I know that's one of the.
Yeah, I couldn't fit into it for about 2 years, but I've been. I've been hitting the gym hard, mate. So I've been taking the opportunity to get into it again. So repping the Portugal, repping it.
Well, I always wear the hat when I do the interviews, and I try to change up the wardrobe on every episode here. And this is the 2006 away black jersey, and I hadn't fit into this one in a while too. So we're both doing good. We're both doing good, Matthew. Let's go.
That's it, mate.
No more fish fries for you and Tom for a while, right?
No, I let myself have a pastel de nata on Sunday, so that's it. That's my treat.
Look at you.
Living large.
All the best, man. Appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely, as the World Cup approaches, we'll hook up again, and who's to say what happens in the next 2 months and what happens in November and December. We shall see. But all the best to you, and thanks for coming on. You
too, mate. Good. Best of wishes to you and your family. Take it easy.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. That has been Matthew Marshall. Again, I just really enjoy his perspective on things, and I think not that I'm in a better spot with this national team after talking with Matthew per se, but it's just, again, you get so caught up in it's the phrase, you get caught up in your feelings. And yeah, I like most of you out there watching and listening, watching the game yesterday and watching these games for the last few years, where the frustration has been something very palpable, and I hear it I read it and interact with you guys on Twitter, and it's definitely something that I can see and I feel. But I think sometimes if you just take a step back and just accept it for what it is, we can't change it. We'll definitely be pissed off about it, and that's what Twitter and this podcast is here for you. But again, I just appreciated the perspective there from Matthew, and I look forward to what comes here in the next couple of months. But yeah, that's going to do it here for episode number 67 of the Seleção podcast. Remember to follow Matthew on Twitter at Noobs Corp. That's at NOOBZCORP. Bookmark all the stuff, or bookmark Portugal.net to read his stuff, Nathan's stuff, Tom Cunard's stuff, not only for the national team, but the whole team there on the club side too. It's an interesting time right now, given the way in which yesterday happened, and we'll just see what happens here in the next couple of months. We've got qualifying for Euros that gets announced in terms of groups. So that gets announced next month. We'll have a little bit about that, but yeah, between now and the World Cup, let's just see what happens with this national team in terms of the players. Hopefully, as Matthew mentioned, and I echo that, hopefully no serious injuries to any of the main stable here. But yeah, it's let's just see what happens in the next couple months and see where we are when we go to Qatar, November the 24th, that first group match. So again, that'll do it for episode number 67 of the Seleção podcast. My name is Danny Pinto. I have been your host. We are a proud partner of Portugal.net, and we are now officially on the road to Qatar. And whether you like Fernando Santos or think we have any chance whatsoever, we can all agree that everyone should say, Força Portugal!